Yo, what's up? How's it going? Welcome back to the Trevor Sean Audiocast, episode 11. Thanks for checking this out, guys. Seriously, I really appreciate it. Whoever is out there listening, I think it's cool. And if you were able to grab one small, helpful piece of information, then it makes it worth it. Hopefully, my kids, when they grow up, appreciate something from this. So that's something. But honestly, along the way, I think it's, we're social creatures, so if we're able to share information, and I mean, I've said that a ton, but just that random idea of information that someone may not have known or whatever, I think that's cool. So, yeah, welcome back. This is cool. Definitely follow me on social. I would love to hear any comment or feedback from you guys, whoever is listening, so that'd be really cool. And along those lines, I have a couple other things I am running. So if you like tech or sports kind of stuff, then you can find out some more information about that on there. And yeah, I took a week off, just kind of clear my head and get a little rest in because this is so demanding. No, but holidays was a little bit tricky, but it's back. It's nice to be back. So I'm excited to go through this and kind of get back on track with things. So I'm excited. Happy 2021. It's crazy. Let's hope that this year is always better than last, I guess, right? I'm not a huge Debbie Downer. 2020 was obviously a little crazy, but it also presented some really cool opportunities for me. So I'm trying not to dog on it too much. I think it was a good year for growth. So as are a lot of hard things. So that's good. But yeah, if this is the first time that you're listening to this, it's just like an audio series where I document my journey on self-improvement and building a successful, valuable life, and just try to share information along the way of really my experience going through this stuff. And I really just kind of share things I learned from reading books and trial and error in my own life, and yeah, that kind of stuff. And so hopefully you find some value from it. That'll be cool. Excuse me. All right. So the things I'm going to run through today are goals. Obviously, it's the new year. It's easy. New habit, old habit. I have some information about that. That's kind of cool. And then also this quote I found or came across on social media that I thought was super dope that I want to share. So let's just get into it. So with goals, I'm a huge fan of goals. I've always loved the idea of goals. But the one thing that I was very bad at was actually sticking to them and really kind of understanding the depth of them. I was always really good about writing my wish list of things I'd really want to do. But when it came to trying to achieve those, I always really fell short. And I was a much more of a growing up a New Year's guy. And I think part of that had to be from my environment that I grew up in. It was a little chaotic. I had 6 siblings and both my parents worked. And then my dad moved out of the house because he got transferred to work up in Oregon. And so it was just really chaotic when I was living with my mom because she was dealing with work and 6 kids, and it was nuts. And then I went and lived up with my dad for a little while, and things slowed down a little bit, and it was kind of cool in that way because it allowed me to focus more. I was able to kind of be a little bit more king of my own domain and kind of set up my routines and things like that. And so that taught me some really cool lessons that have helped me later in my life for sure. But yeah, for whatever reason, I was always kind of a New Year's resolution and all these things. And, I don't know what the exact problem was. One of them, I think, was just being too shallow with the actionable steps to be able to do some of those goals. And, trial and error and just kind of going through things. So I'm at this point now where, I've talked to you guys about this a little while ago, a couple episodes ago, where I think goals are important. You have to write them down. So I just want to kind of highlight a couple things, and I feel like goals, especially to be able to grow and progress in life, you have to have goals, and the benefits are just crazy. to be able to track and then schedule time to be able to achieve these things, and then to be there as a reminder to help you remember the things that you really wanted to do, and like kind of give you that, that daily ping. And then just to be able to compare things as you are progressing through life. I think that's like a cool thing, and it really helps you to round yourself out and continue to get better. So coming from the most unofficial source of all time, and I just barely admitted that I'm bad at goals, in my opinion, here are the steps that I found recently to set yourself up better to achieve your goals and to write them down and all that kind of stuff. So the first one, you have to write them down. If you don't write your stuff down somewhere, and I don't care where it is, I don't care what it's with, a crayon, paper, on your computer, or whatever, you have to be able to write them down and have access to them easily so that you can look at them daily. So if that's on your phone, your computer, on a piece of paper, in your closet, in your pocket, whatever, I don't really care. I literally carry my goals around with me everywhere I go, and I force myself to do that just because then I could read them every day, and that's down here. But just having them with me all the time keeps the things that, I mean, when you write stuff down, you like spend some time to really think about stuff, and if you do goals the right way, which is the next step, you got to start big, which is fine. You want to get in shape. What a great, vague, shallow idea, Well, not shallow, but just very, very vague. But then you got to narrow it down to the most basic activity for achieving that. And that's a super important step, like, okay, you want to get in shape. So what does that mean? So at the end, you have to eat better. What does eat better mean? You have to cut out, I don't know, all the crappy food 6 days out of the week, and you have one day that you can eat whatever you want. Okay, that helps. Then how do you structure your meals throughout the day? And this is the thing that's hard. It's like you don't really know what to expect until you start doing it, because I've been trying to do some dieting, and it's like you try to cut out some stuff, and man, you get a little cranky sometimes, and you have to eat a little bit more frequently the good foods instead of waiting for the 3 meals a day and all that kind of stuff, right? So there's just some things you have to like be able to start working on and tracking and stuff like that. And so unless you are able to narrow all that information and all that goal down to some of those most basic tasks, I think it's going to be really hard for you to achieve it. The next thing I said was read every day. You have to read those goals every day, because it just keeps it right at the forefront of like what you want to achieve that day, because goals are made up of the daily activity that you do. And if you aren't actively working on them on a daily basis, or depending on your goal, whatever you're looking to do, and if they're just not really in your realm, then how are you going to remember to do them? So got to read it every day. Next one is be flexible and allow for some changes. So I think that's very important, because you come across different things and maybe you just need to adjust things a little bit. Maybe you can't work out for an hour, but maybe you can work out for 30 minutes a day. And that's where you need to start, because working out for hours killing you and you weren't happy and blah, 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 blah. Or you wanted to read a book a week and you found out that it's really hard. And so maybe you're trying to do one book every 2 weeks and whatever. So I think it's good to be able to adjust. And then the last part of that, though, is don't adjust too much where you are like giving yourself an out all the time, because that's not healthy either. And you'll start to like, that's the cool thing, is like when you write them down and you start tracking these things, then you, instead of just thinking you're a failure and giving up on things, or you always are just like kind of dogging out, you'll be able to see what you're doing and you'll find your patterns, and then you'll be like, dude, I always kind of wuss out. I need to like maybe try a little harder or whatever, And so the last thing was challenge yourself, and just know that you can be able to, you can really do things if you set an appropriate time frame and give it the necessary attention and effort, for sure. And starting is the hardest part, man. But once you start like getting in the mode of things, then you can do tons of stuff. And that kind of leads me to this next piece I want to talk about, which is new habits and old habits. And man, habits are like so important to establish, for sure. This year, my favorite habit that me and my wife worked on was working out. We really just, working out is like, it's always been a pretty big part of my life, just being active. And this pandemic presented an opportunity for us to be able to have a little bit more time with me not having to commute work from home. So we just uh, use that time to be able to go work out. And like, it definitely wasn't easy at the beginning. It's kind of crazy to think back now, because at the beginning I was just like, it was a really hard mental decision where I'm like, okay, I have to go now. And that was really hard to do it. But once I got there, and we just worked out in my basement, but once I got to the room and had my stuff on, then it just kind of like, everything was fine. And then it got to the point where we just did it so often. After about, I don't know, a month, I didn't really have to decide anymore. Like, if I knew I had to work out that day, I just went and did it. And that was so cool. And it took the burden off that. Then I could take some of that energy I was spending on just like deciding to work out, and then I could spend that on a more intense workout. And so then that started to translate over to that. And then now I'm at the point where I don't even think about it. I just have to do it every day, or I'd like go nuts. And so now I'm working on like working out earlier in the day rather than later in the day, because it kind of sets me up for a better day, and all these different types of things. But um the habit with creating that habit, it's such an important thing, because like I said, I just don't even think about the decision anymore. I'm like, okay, I got to do it. So when am I going to do it? And then that's just it. I don't have to think. I don't have to make the conscious decision. I just know I'm going to go do it at this time, and that's it. And that's helped a ton. And I feel like that really matters a lot in your life, especially with the goals that you want to achieve. And I mean, consistency is a big deal, obviously. You have to be able to show up and do it every time. Um, the piece about the old habit, though, I read a couple books about habits last year. One of them was really sciencey, and it was a little tough to get through. Had some good information, but a little crazy. I think it was called, I can't remember. But this other one is called Atomic Habits by James Clear, and he does a great job of explaining it into a very actionable plan that just makes real world sense. And so if you haven't read that book, it's awesome. It's one of my favorites, top 10. And it really helped me see habits in a whole different way, and how to create them better, track them, write them down, and really start to plan out the kind of life that you want to have, and like kind of get started. And getting started is the hardest part. And then after you do get started, then the next challenge is like, I don't know, you do like this basic goal for like reading for 5 minutes a day. And then the next challenge is like, okay, how do you start to really carve out your life to read for an hour a day, And I mean, that's like some dedication, man. It's like, if you have kids, especially like I do, find an hour to go read is like either in the bright and early morning after you're done with your workout, I guess, or at late at night. And sometimes late at night, it is not fun because you're so drained and tired. Drained, exhausted of happiness. I'll rephrase it. But yeah, one thing that he did mention in that book, I'm pretty sure it came from this source, was that it's not enough to get rid of bad habits, but you have to fill that hole with something good. Otherwise, it's a lot less likely to stick of you getting rid of that habit. And so I thought that was really interesting, and it is true. It's like, there's this one time where this one month I really wanted. I'm kind of a big snacker at night, especially when I'm down here doing this kind of stuff. And I was like, dude, I bet you that's like a source of me just kind of gaining some extra pounds during this month. And so I just decided to stop snacking after 8, I think it was. And dude, I lost like 6 pounds in a month. It was really crazy. But instead of snacking, I remember I'd consciously go downstairs and like head to the pantry, and then I was like, nope, you gotta stop. And then I started to take the time where I would go look for food or whatever, and it's like go work and do this stuff a little earlier, and it just filled that time, and I didn't even think about it anymore. So I think that matters, and I think it's a big deal. I do have a rant about this habit stuff and all these decisions and stuff like that that's going on around the world right now. I think it's great, and then we have all this psychology and research about how we work as humans, and the brain, the decision-making process, and dopamine, and blah, 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 all this stuff. And I think it's so good. I think it's like, it's so important and great to be able to understand how we think and how we are as humans and all that kind of stuff, for sure. But the one thing that I don't want to have happen is you can't let this science take away from the difficulty of life. It's because sometimes it makes it seem like, oh, just create the habit, then it's easy. And that's true, it is easier. But then you open yourself up to other bigger challenges after you conquer that one. And we are progressive beings. We always want to get better. I really believe that. We always are looking for the next challenge. We have to. That's what fulfills us and keeps us going. Otherwise, things just get too easy, and then we get bored and miserable, and then we don't care, and then we start making trouble because it's more exciting than just doing the easy shits all the time, right? And so I just wanted to do a quick rant and be like, even though you're creating these habits and it is better for you and it makes it easier and all this stuff, going and work out still is freaking hard, man. It's like, it sucks. It's not easy. And doing your work and going to your day job and getting there on time, maybe that's a good habit to create and that's not as hard anymore, but you still have to show up and perform, and you have to figure out these problems. You have to take care of them. And so when you're doing these goals and you're creating these habits and stuff like that, my rant is don't just feel like you crack the code that people found and be like, oh, well, you created a habit and you get the dopamine hit. Now it's easy and you just do that, because it's being a human being and dealing with problems and still carving out time to go work out and have a successful business or work and have success that way and raise kids and make sure that they're doing well and make sure you're prepared for all the different types of catastrophes that could happen at any moment. It's difficult. It's super hard. Being a human is very hard. But these things do help and they make it better. And that's the point. It's we're all just trying to figure out a better way to continue through life and be better about whatever we're doing. So the last thing I have is this quote that I came across from the website Art of Manliness. They have a Instagram page, obviously, but they talked about, they did this challenge where it's a one habit a year to a better man. I can substitute that for a better person, I'm sure. But it talked about, sorry, I'm just kind of reading through. Benjamin Franklin said, each year one bad habit rooted out in time ought to make the worst man good, which I think is cool. I mean, if you really think about your adult life, I mean, I'm 33. I mean, if I could root out, 30 bad habits by the time I'm 63, be pretty efficient. But the point that they were trying to take here is sometimes we are lofty with our goals. We have a lot of things we want to change, which that's not a bad thing. That's fine. And but there's a lot of things you have to deal with over the course of a year, and things happen. And so let's see, they say a span of years is shorter than you think, so set your goals in bigger blocks. So come 2031, you can look back and realize you're pretty much exactly the same person you were a decade ago, because maybe you bit off more you can chew and you couldn't really focus intense attention to any of your goals or habits that you're trying to create. So therefore, you didn't create any. Or it said come 2031, you can reflect on the fact that you've become an early rising, morning meditating, intermittent fasting, daily journal writing, 64 ounces of water a day drinking, nightly flossing, barbell lifting, book a week reading, afternoon walk taking, scripture studying dynamo. A completely new creature built by working on one and only one habit each year. So I thought that was kind of cool. So, and it is interesting because even just this last thing for me, it's exercise has been a huge part of my life and sanity, and it's helped make me a much better person. So that's been way cool. So I'm excited about that. And then thinking about this year, I don't really have to think about that too much. I have to make these little tweaks, but I'm already in that mindset of just doing it every day. And so that's a cool thing to not have to worry about and think about consciously. And so now it's on to the next thing. And so I'm not quite sure what the big thing is for me. It's still undecided. So don't feel like you have to make all your goals on New Year's Day. You have plenty of time to do it anytime you want, and anytime you feel it, go write it down. So that's my spiel today. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know if you have any questions or comments or anything like that. I'd love to hear anything that you have to share. And yeah, until next time, man. Hope you guys have a great year. Let's shred it this year, 2021. It's going to be a great year, whatever we make it. Let's go.